Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So today's video, it wasn't on the schedule because yesterday's video was meant to be today's video, and that was all because I assumed that yesterday we'd be getting a trailer for the new season, and it turns out that that's not the case because Bungie is trying to play their cards very close to their chest. We've heard nothing via leaks or official channels on what the next season could be, with one exception, which is that there'll be a returning exotic weapon, and that's it, and I'm not even going to say what that is, because that is possible spoilers. I'm only even mentioning it because I assume most people here have seen Paul Tassie's article at very least raising the subject. So, all of this raises that really big question. What will we be facing in Season 17? According to Liana, the community manager from Bungie, we've seen a few little hints in the current season, and from Witch Queen as to what we'll be facing next season, so we're going to take a look at all of the possibilities for what we'll be facing next time around, and we'll be focusing on a few different possibilities. But first, a word from our sponsors on this video, Factor. With Factor, you can get fresh, ready-made meals delivered to your doorstep. Factor's chef-created meals are fresh and designed by dietitians to ensure every meal is packed with premium, proper nutrition. It's easy for my wife and I to get carried away with work when we're in the middle of a really busy work week, and when that happens, we want something that's really simple to prepare and cook, and also something that's nutritious. We can't let our health go nowadays. We're both trying to get more conscious about health and fitness, and that starts with good eating practices. Factor helps us to accomplish that. Factor helps us to cut out the stressful prep and lets us bring a meal together in minutes. Factor even offers meals for all dietary needs and desires, whether that's keto, low-calorie, vegan, or vegetarian. Most importantly, it's a flexible service. There are well over 27 meal options each week, meaning that there's something for everyone and you have plenty of choice. Meal plans range from 4 to 18 meals per week, and with Factor, you can add or subtract meals based on what you need. You can modify your food preferences, or even skip a week if you're going away for a period of time. There really is a lot of built-in flexibility. Use my link, or go to go.factor75.com and use code POGBIFE120 for $120 off now. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring this video. Anyway, back to the lore. In my mind, there are really 5 possible story threads that Bungie might pull on. 2 of them are likely, and 3 of them not so much. Let's start with the unlikely stuff first, because we inevitably talk about the 2 big possibilities of the Cabal story and the Warmind story, and, well, those are probably going to take up everybody's mind. But there are other small things that are worth thinking about, which are other storylines which Destiny might follow. So, again, we'll discuss those first. First of all, we need to consider the Scorn. Now, I know they're not everyone's favourite enemy to fight, but I think it's got to the point in the story where we need to get a little bit more context on them generally as a people, and what their place is going to be in the solar system and in the conflict to come. We know for a fact that the Scorn served Rulk in the throne world of Savathûn, and that now they serve the Witness, but we know for a fact that there's also a wild card in play for the Scorn, and that is the Fanatic Fikrul. If you played Forsaken, you know who this character is. For those of you who don't know, he is one of the original reasons the Scorn are around today and have been created. Him alongside Uldren Sov and Riven and Savathûn herself. Kind of ironic that they came back to sort of bite her in her own throne world. Anyway, the point is that the Witness is now in contest with the Fanatic potentially for the actual control over the Scorn. And I think this is where the conflict lies. I don't know what the Fanatic's relationship to the Witness is going to be. If it is one where it's complementary, then this story is fairly cut and dry. He's just going to be another villain that we fight again at some point soon. But I don't know if it's going to be that simple. And the reason I say that is because there is a very paternal way in which the Fanatic describes his Scorn. He describes them as his children. And I don't know if giving up control over his children to the Witness is really what the Fanatic has in mind. I wonder whether there's a possibility that the Fanatic chooses the lesser of 2 evils and decides to side with us so that we can eventually start to peel the Scorn forces away from the Witness. If we do this, that's a huge tactical advantage for us, and it ends up meaning that the Fanatic can get developed a lot more, and there's a Crow story beat there, because Uldren is now something that Crow, well, he knows about and understands, and he knows exactly what he did with regards to everything about raising the Scorn as well, so There is a cool storyline they could pick up on there, and it might be a really nice way of helping to tie down some of the past loops within Crow's character. I think we'll see that inevitably at some point in the future, I just don't know when, and I don't think that it's the most likely thing to see next season, but it's not impossible. It's also important because unlike the Hive, Cabal, and Fallen, the Scorn, aside from the Fanatic, don't really have many characters to speak of. This might be a chance to establish a couple more Scorn villains, or a few more Scorn characters generally, and in my opinion that's really important. Next, we need to talk about the Hive and the potential continuation of all their stories. We know for a fact that Imaru has escaped and is still in command of the Lucent Hive forces as the first ghost of the Lucent Hive. We've foiled plenty of his plans, and he's still evaded us for the time being. I think it'd be fair to say that the Hive of Savathun and the Hive of Xivu Arath have unfinished business, and this is where our storyline might lead us. We may have to sit there and think for a second about whether the Hive of Savathun are truly the enemies we think they are, and this might be one of those questions that further divides us and asks us really whether we're on the side of the Lost City or the Light, or maybe both. It brings that nuance question back into the equation, which Bungie's a huge fan of. The thing that I think we have no doubt of is that in any future Hive story arcs we'd be looking at Xivu Arath as a likely villain, and I feel like that's the point at which the Lucent Hive have a reason here or there to become allied with us in some respect. I think if you look at some of the more recent lore, which I've made a video on, about how the two different sides of the Hive are really starting to interact, you can start to see those story beats in a lot more detail. There's a video on that I'm going to link in the description, go ahead and check that out if you want more information. Finally, out of these three lower rung possibilities, I think we need to talk about the potential for a season that involves the Fallen, and more specifically the Fallen of the House of Salvation. It has been a while since we left Eramis frozen in ice on Europa, and there's a lot of references to her in the lore, especially in the kind of lore that's linked to the Dark Future lore book. She was a key commander within the Darkness's hierarchy, and perhaps more importantly, there are other places in which this idea has been repeated, in particular the final vision from the Vox Obscura mission, which tells us more about the forces that we might be facing in the future when the Witness comes to fight us for real. Take a quick listen to this.
This latest transmission from Euryx shows the same images over and over. These must be psionic divinations, impressions of things yet to come. I see a city besieged. The ship stealer revived. The Leviathan reborn. Your traveler infected by darkness. These are the futures our enemies seek. We must remain united if we are to forge a different path.
It's been well over a year since Beyond Light, and I feel like this year we are pretty due for another Fallen storyline, and it's one that I think could involve the House of Light as well. As much as I love to witter on about it, I'm sure all of you will also remember that the prophecy of the Kell of Kells still hasn't been completed, so we're not quite there yet at the place where we can truly tell whether the Fallen storyline is 100% resolved. All of that being said, I think we need a plot point that brings us there first, before we can really tangibly say, hey, the Fallen are going to have another storyline. I might not even be surprised if we sit here and see this as a seasonal story beat for the year after this, in some time akin to, say, the Lightfall to Final Shape months and seasons, but again, we'll see. Okay, so we've done the minor possibilities, now onto the major possibilities that I'm sure everyone has been screaming about for the last 7 or 8 minutes. Yes, we're going to talk about the Warmind storyline and the Cabal storyline, starting with the Warmind storyline. And this, I think, is the number 2 possibility, not the number 1 possibility. The reason I say that is because, well, we have been getting some hints to it, whether it's something like the Grand Overture Exotic Lore tab, or whether it's the note about Nephele Stronghold that we got from the evidence board. We know in the storylines that Anna Bray has been repairing Rasputin for quite some time, and with more of those Nephele Stronghold hints, and the more recent lore, I think it's fair to say that we're getting to that point at which we will see movement on this storyline soon. It's also worth remembering that in the Dark Future lore book, it also points to the idea that Rasputin was indeed resurrected, and that he was resurrected in a place known as, of course, the Deep Stone Crypt. If you've not played Beyond Light, and in particular its raid, you may not have heard of that, but if you have, you understand exactly what's going to happen next, and why that one frame of Anna Bray repairing a exo frame of some sort is so important. Yeah, there's a video on that that's going to be linked in the description as well. The description is just chock full of links and all of that. If you want more info on it, go there. But more importantly, the idea that Rasputin is going to be resurrected to help fight the Witness is not at all an unfamiliar one. I would sit there and say that whilst this entire expansion is likely to take place on Europa, the real question is going to be around the villains for that expansion. It's one of those things where I wonder if that gets tied into the House of Salvation storyline, if there is to be one, because it might be a really logical point and a nice point of symmetry to see us raising one of our own strong combatants while the Darkness does the same with Eramis. It could also be something that again involves the Eliksni, because, I mean, the number of times that we've seen not only Scion tech but also Splicer tech be useful as far as navigating certain strange technologies, it's starting to mount up. And Anna Bray has even used Splicer and Scion tech in order to involve herself in the latest repairs of Rasputin. So it's not at all out of the question that Anna and Mithrax pair up in this, and essentially grab the Warmind with the assistance of the Eliksni, and bring him to bear against the newly rising forces of the House of Salvation. A really interesting set of stories can be explored there, and I don't think that it's unlikely that we'll see them at some point soon. If we do see them, we will definitely be heading back to Europa. The final possibility, and the one that I think is most likely to occur, is the Cabal storyline. And there is a lot of weight to this being the one that Season 17 is going to be. I think it's the most likely outcome that this will be the storyline Bungie pulls on. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing as I did earlier, just link a few videos down in the description if you want more info on this possibility, but you should know that there's a lot of info to link you at that point. There may be 4, maybe 5 videos, I don't know, I can't remember exactly. Point is, there's lots of big hints or movements within the story that indicate this is where we'll be going next. Whether it's the appointment of Saladin Forge as at first the new Brachus and then the new Valis within Keitel's ascendancy, and the connective story and gameplay thread we have there with Iron Banner being revamped, or whether it's the Vox Obscura mission and the various bits and pieces of lore that have been going on with the Scions, and where that has left the Cabal storyline generally. I think it's really easy to imagine that this is all going to be a bit of a showdown between Calus versus Keitel, and that Euryx is going to be somewhere in the middle, helping decide the fate of the Scions along the way. I also wonder whether there are going to be other Cabal names which get involved, whether Amtek, the fourth of the sisters, if she is still alive, is involved in this storyline, but I think it fits really well, not just because of the fact that there are so many hints to it in the story, but also because of the fact that it continues on from where the Season of the Risen left things. There is, of course, also the big question of whether Calus is alive or dead, and I feel like we'll get an answer to that if that season does roll on. I don't think it's right to assume either way, because we've learned different things in the Vox Obscura and Presage missions. The Presage mission seemed to indicate that he was dead, or at very least had been subsumed by the darkness, and the Vox Obscura mission seemed to indicate that he was alive, or perhaps was controlled by the darkness. Those latter two possibilities, that he was subsumed by darkness and now is controlled by it, is where I personally think I land, but we really don't know what's going on with Calus, so that's a persistent mystery that we have to unravel and investigate. Could Calus have become another of the Witness's disciples? Maybe. I mean, it certainly fits his operating agenda, so we'll have to see what goes on there, but I think it's fairly clear that Calus and the Witness are now in cahoots, and no matter what happens, there is going to be a battle for the soul of the Cabal. Either way, between the Scion defectors and all the other different aspects of the story that are being explored, I think it's very likely that we see the Cabal storyline, and that is my best guess for what we're going to face in Season 17. A fight which pitches us and Keitel against Euryx, the rebel Scion, and Calus, the deposed former Cabal Emperor. But that's all from me for now. Tell me what you think we're going to see in Season 17. Do you think I'm right? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think there's a possibility that I didn't discuss? Let me know down below in the comments section. If you enjoyed the video, you can also go ahead and leave a like, and of course hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. As per usual though, know that your viewership is quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you Starside.